A generation is a group of people from a certain time frame that experienced historical life events in which that has shaped their identity in the way they behave or live their life. So let's get into Generation Z, or people that are born from 1995 to 2006, is estimated to be 51%, that is 25 and younger, of the world's population. A Westernized scholar by the name Mark Prensky coined the term digital natives for Generation Z. Prensky's work follows the neuroscientist by the name Dr. Perry, in which he shows that Generation Z brains have physically changed, meaning that generation in comparison to older generation can consume information faster.
Gen Z is definitely someone who has knowledge of technology and is always following a trend.
This generation was raised during a recession, so a lot of their behavior is conservative with financial spending, as well as they are less likely to take risk.
I just don't get it. You know, we want to act like we're all free and liberated, but we have all of these rules about everything, and I can't keep up. You know, it's putting me in the literal health center. These rules are driving me crazy, and I just don't know why we do it to ourselves.
When we think about the best way to explore Generation Z in higher education, Terry Yosso's 2005 Community Cultural Wealth model comes into mind. There are 6 components or pillars of capital that comprise this community cultural wealth model. Aspirational capital is about keeping the faith in times of opposition. With the digital lens, this generation uses the online platform differently from other generations. Their online presence is curated in a way that they can filter influential material, as well as be participants in the material. Speaking and communicating for this generation looks different, mainly because of their online global space. Exchanges are done online rather than through text messages and phone calls.
You watch a whole vlog of someone, by the end of it, you're like, oh, that's my friend. I know that person.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to see people in real life. At least that's how I feel sometimes.
It's common to see Gen Z in a multi-generational household that has a multifaceted family composition. These situations can bring on familial capital, which are ways that close family members exchange wisdom. This young TikToker is Charmaine, who is a Black deaf woman that shares the experiences of being deaf with her parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. Charmaine's grandfather is explaining different sign language he learned while in school, and that American Sign Language differentiates from Black American Sign Language. Yosso's social capital is about networking with members of your community for resources. Gen Z's network with one another is impeccable. We see this through their ability to organize on hot issues like climate change, Black Lives Matter, and gun control reform. Transitioning in and out of situations is navigational capital. We see this with Gen Z, ability to forge paths that best fit their needs, therefore being more self-reliant.
Gen Z thinks very diverse and open.
And this could be because this group is the most diverse generation, which leads us to resistance capital, which is pushing against societal expectations, an important thing for Gen Z. Realistically, can Yosso CCWM research be applied to this generation? Through a qualitative approach, we asked 5 open-ended questions to 8 participants that were accessible population to the researchers, using a descriptive statistical approach. So here's what we found. Our first question was, how would you describe your overall attitude when faced with opposition in college? All participants showed signs of optimism versus pessimism. Second is, what is the most effective way you dialogue or communicate amongst the communities you are part of, and what platform do you do this on? 62.5% of participants observed using different ways of communicating through contemporary digital platforms outside of text messaging and phone calls. Third, can you share about any communities you looked for resources or ways you have networked with others during your time in college? 87.5% of the participants shared experiences in which they turned to family or family figures for school resources. Fourth, what are some decisions you've made for yourself to be able to complete college? 62.5% of the participants acknowledge having to make sacrifices to attend college. Fifth, Can you share any experiences in which you challenged or questioned the college course professor regarding social injustices? 37.5% of students experience resistance capital within their college experience. So this research has some limitations. The biggest limitation was our proximity to the targeted group. Nonetheless, we do have some suggestions using Yosso CCWM research for Generation Z in hopes to improve recruitment, retention, and graduation plans. We suggest for higher education institutions to have a social media department. The purpose here is to form a bridge between faculty and students in creating better social media presence with using education curriculum. Let me give you an example of an educator who's taken his space to the TikTok.
Black history and the Holocaust. Let's explore it. See, in the name of research over me search, we know that when it comes to remembering historically the Holocaust, the fate of Hitler's black victims, whether Afro-German or African-American soldier citizens, it is often overlooked in studies of World War II. Too far often, when it comes to teaching the significance of the Holocaust, we gloss over how black people were a lot of times the first people led to slaughter. Going further into context, there's a lot more that can be learned about Nazi policies, specifically when it comes to Afro-Germans. Something about that German colonial backlash, huh? We know that as a result of the 1919 Treaty of Versailles, a whole bunch of Germans went back to Germany because they lost their colonies in Africa, right? And peep game, a manifestation of power was being able to infuse your feelings into policy. By 1937, sterilization of hella Afro-Germans as well as black soldiers became important, tragic, and still misunderstood component of Nazi policies. So the next time you bring up the Holocaust, make sure you understood it's structured by black history.
The next suggestion is a student influencer program. Playing to the digital Gen Z native experience, we want to see students get online and share their experiences, discuss what's working for them and what's not. Our final suggestion is a family inclusion participation training for all departments at the university to be able to offer accessible hours for families to come and receive information about education. As you can see, the research is extremely small and is still being developed. We hope that this information with Yosso CCWM can help contribute to Gen Z's education experience.